Okay, so still working outside here. It's a beautiful day in October in eastern Canada, probably about 14 or 15 degrees Celsius. So we're changing oil pan. We're actually not changing oil pan, we're changing the oil in the 2006 Smart CDI. And I'm removing the oil pan to do it because I don't believe sucking it out has been doing a very good job, and I don't have a replacement pan, so I'm just going to drop the pan, drop the oil, clean the pan out, reinstall the pan, and put new oil in it, and carry on from there. And maybe change out and put a drain plug in oil pan with a drain plug in it in the spring, but it won't be this winter. So basic tools here to start off. You need an E8 Torx end and a 10mm socket and a couple of good long extensions for the oil pan. I got them here laying in front of me. 8, 10, 12 inch, whatever you have, 30 centimeter, whatever they call them these days. Long extension, 3/8 drive, 1/4 inch, and this oil pan is siliconed on. Now, there is a gasket available for it. I don't have one. I'm using RTB silicone, black silicone, maximum oil resistance, Permatex. Good product. All the Permatex stuff works very well for me over the years anyway. It works just as well on boots as it does oil pans. So if you've got a cracking boot, that's a good spot for it as well. But I'm using the black instead of the red. The red's a lot harder to remove in the future. And the black doesn't seem to squeeze out from the oil. Neither does the red. The blue does, though, seem to squeeze out and not last as well. For this application. So I'm going to take the E8 and Torx and knock it on to make sure that you've got a good, because if you'll notice there's a bit of a recess on the end of this socket. It's rounded, and this has been removed before, not by myself. They've kind of screwed up the edges of the Torx bolts a little bit. So you need to take this, put this on over your bolt head, and then take a hammer, a mechanic's hammer, or in this case a claw hammer, whatever's handy, and tap on the back of the extension. If you've been to mechanic school, they'll tell you not to do that. They're full of lies. Beat on whatever you got to get the job done. And that's how we do it in the real world. So knock this on, and be careful removing it. Go gently. These are not strong bolts. You don't want them broken off in the block. If you do break one off, it's not the end of the world, but if you break 2 or 3, you're looking at extraction and everything else. It might not just be worth the job. Just go ahead and suck the oil out and change it as best you can and change your filter. So I'm going to go ahead here now and see if we can't get some of these removed. And I don't have a very good work spot here. I'm outside again. So, but the car's up on ramps. So I'm squeezing underneath here, and the oil pan, if we can just slide under here for now. Just 1 second here, bear with me. Okay, hold on. Move my cardboard, get something to lie on that's halfway comfortable, and see if I have a good shot of this. This is your oil pan right here. It's just, you'll see the oil filter housing. Okay, it's a cartridge type oil filter in your oil cooler, and just in front of the oil cooler underneath is your oil pan. Okay, and as you can see on the oil pan, it has the Torx head bolts all the way around, and there's 1 or 2 10mm here for a couple of brackets that you have to remove. And so just go all the way around and pry it down and go from there. So I'm going to see now if I can set up this camera so you can see what I'm doing, and if not, well, I'll pull it down and show you what I got done, and I need a tripod for this. I don't know what kind of video that's going to take, but we'll see after. If I don't like it, I'll edit it out, I guess. A piece of cardboard. It rained here, so the ground's a little wet. And we'll just see here now. Take your make sure you're on there well. And before you take this pan, take all these bolts all the way out. just go around and see how hard they're going to be to loosen. That one there loosened very easily. So with that one, if we can keep lucky like that all the way around, we'll be alright. But knock on wood, as they say. Now sometimes you have to remove the little plastic housing for the belts. Okay, that one came out real easy. Some of them you probably don't have to knock it on, but if you strip that head, you've got nothing. Only trouble after that. Torques are a little prone to stripping. They're supposed to be a better bolt for grabbing and stuff like this. I think it's just manufacturers trying to get us to buy more wrenches, quite frankly. So they're coming out there fairly easy. Like I say, I got a few smart cars, but I haven't actually doing a lot of work on this one lately. And so this is just the bracket here for the block heater, which goes to the front of the car. I'm not even sure if this block heater works or not. We haven't historically used the block heaters on them. Really haven't had any need to, quite frankly. Cars always start with relative little problems with relative ease. And so that's the block heater on this one here, which looks like it might be in working order. Okay, so I had a bit of a hard time finding a container that was short enough that could catch this oil and put something in here because it's a bit windy out for any dripping strings to not fly all over the ground. And I'm trying to not make a mess. And nobody wants oil on the ground, I guess. I know I don't. So I got one left to take out. And it should be this one right here. Doesn't look like I'm going to have much trouble prying this one off. It's already starting to leak. Seal. As you can see, there's some oil starting to spill out, which is very black. Okay, so it's slowly starting to. So whoever put it on there last time put lots of silicone anyway. Okay, here we go. Now again, I don't have any bolts in the back or anything like that. You don't want it to flop down because you just end up with a big mess. So you want to try and take this down in as controlled a fashion as you can without wearing it. So I'm holding one side and prying down the other if my head's not in the way. Be careful of your oil pickup tube and all that in there. There we go. One oil pan out. Take the oil pan out and lay down like that. There we go. Actually went very smoothly. Could have went a lot worse. So here is the oil pan off. Okay. And I used a cheap plastic polypropylene container, which, as you can tell by the jagged edges, was very difficult to cut. I used a skill saw because I had nothing else that would fit under this short car or low car. I guess the shortness has nothing to do with it, the lowness of it. And the I'll just scooch you under here a little bit and try and show you what the bottom of this engine looks like from this side. So there's your bottom of your block. Okay, and your oil pickup tube for your sump. And you can see like the silicone hanging down here from the last. So I'll let this drain here now for a bit. and I'll come in and clean up all these edges. Scrape these. I gotta go find my paint scraper and get off all this globs of silicone here, gasket silicone here, you see here along. Clean that all up, and then clean up the pan as well. So clean up the mating surfaces, as it were. Okay, and the mating surface is that edge of the block that I was just showing you, the bottom edge of the block, and of course this surface along here. And I'll clean those all up. I might take an extra 5 minutes and clean this pan up on the outside and paint it a little bit, just so it will hold up a little longer over this winter. A little bit of rust on it, but it's not too bad. A little bit of trim clad wouldn't hurt it. And yeah, so we'll get this all cleaned up. And this here, see this globs of silicone? This is too much silicone. This could actually go inside your pan and cause you trouble. So we won't be applying quite that much after when we're done. So just to let you know what's going on here, I got the pan off, and there's a few bubbles of rust here. They're coming through, and probably stuff I shouldn't touch, but I don't think there's any holes through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it all off. I've got a brass buncher I'm going to put on, a brush I'm going to put on a drill, and bring this all off, and I'll use this to clean the other side, clean this pan all the way around. And then I'm going to hit it with the rust paint, gloss back rust paint. This one is a home hardware product here in Canada, and I'd say it's just as good, probably better than Tremclad or some of the other ones. So, but whatever you have, I mean, this is not a show car, this is just some preventative maintenance. And I have intentions of putting a pan in here next spring with a drain plug in it, but the world is paved with good intentions, so who knows if that'll happen or not. But for right now, what I'll do is clean up the rust and check the pan. I have a couple of other pans here that I could use or take off an engine if this one had a hole in it, but I don't think that's the case. But I'll just make sure that this one gets through the winter. Up here a little bit. Oh, I should do this side, I guess. Wheel. I will not be using this wheel on the bottom of the block. It's aluminum, and this is steel, and this would gouge the aluminum right to pieces, and we really don't want that. So I'll be using a scraper and a cloth. I don't know if I'll be able to video that or not. So there's the fairly clean. Like I say, this is not a show car. I'm not worried about that. You know, this is preventative maintenance, trying to keep some rust out of it. If the pan was a little better, I wouldn't even bother with this. So I cleaned it all up with some solvent, and then I went over it with 999 isopropyl on a rag, just to try and get the oily film out of it, so to help this paint stick a bit. And so I'm just taking a gloss rust paint, and you can hit this with a spray can, and a lot of times I'll do that, but it's windy outside here now, and so I just end up putting more paint in the air. And with the brush, you can do this in one coat, sometimes one and a couple of little touch-ups on this type of a job. Whereas with the spray can, just the way it's designed to work, you had to do multiple passes, and it's considerably more expensive. So overall, I mean, if you're not concerned about the finish, you just want lots of paint globbed on there to ensure that your things are not rusting on you as much as possible, then I would suggest the paint can and brush. If you want a more like finish or professional type finish, you might want to go with the spray can, as long as you understand how to use a spray can and not create runs in orange peels, because not everybody understands that. So if you're going to use a spray can, you want a mirror finish, Google how to spray paint properly. I've never done it, but I'm sure you'll find lots of information. Basically, whenever you're spraying something, you don't want to stop and have the spray concentrated in one area while you're spraying, because the paint is so runny that because this paint in the can is much more viscous, it's much thicker, that the can paint is so runny because the propellant they had to put in the aerosol, that you can't put it on very thick or it will run. And if your area you're working with is not free of all oils, or has some kind of dirt or something like that on it, usually some kind of oil film, it'll orange peel. Now, in engine compartments, that happens a lot, and underneath cars, again, it depends on, are you sliding mirrors under this at the show, or are you just trying to get the thing through the winter without oil leaking out of it because it rusts through. So it comes down to what you're trying to accomplish with it. I mean, because this pan could have been a little cleaner, and I got most of the big rust flakes off. I didn't get it on camera, but I did in between. For those of you paying attention, you might have noticed some big rust flakes down when it came back from after I turned off the drill, and that's because I took the hammer to it, beat them a little bit, and beat off the bigger rust flakes, and whatever rust flakes are left on there now will get held in place by paint. But nothing on this one here would have caused leakage if I beat them all off. It's as good as it needs to be, that's all. So we'll see if we can zoom in on this here, or zoom out, I guess. So there's I don't know if you can see that, but there's the bottom of the engine, the oil pan removed. I cleaned as best as I can with what I have available. Should be just fine. Could be a little cleaner probably, but that should work. Okay, and it's really hard for me to get that angle here with I just have the car up on these little ramps, so I don't have a lot of room. And so now here's the pan, and as you can see, it's not pretty. There's a couple of runs in it, but there's two nice thick coats of paint on it that's been drying for an hour or so. I put it in next to the stove to speed it up a bit. Didn't put it on direct heat like type thing, but it's still a little tacky in places, but that's okay. So it's a lot better. It's all nice and clean. And now we're going to put on silicone. So applying silicone is not that difficult of a procedure. See if I can line this up so you can see it. It doesn't have to run that thick, and it shouldn't squeeze onto the inside of the pan. So it shouldn't go in past these ridges. The only place it should go close to the inside of the pan is it should just circle the holes and stay where these little indentations are all the way around, which is where the gasket would have squeezed into back when they weren't so cheap that they gave us a real gasket. So try and keep dirt out of your oil pan. You're not going to want that in there. And so see how nice of a job I can do with this. Don't worry, if you've got a little thin somewhere, you can go back after with your finger or a tool, whatever you're going to use, to make sure it's distributed evenly. So you see I'm not going all the way around each one of those holes, but I will, like that. Okay. When you're finished with your tube, it's best to cap it right away. And it's hard to do while you're squeezing it sometimes, but keep your material squeeze as much up into the front, because you'll get kinks in the tubes where it'll crack and the whole tube will harden. So then fold the tube in the direction that it's already folded. As straight as you can, and try and keep it up into the front and from being broken, and you'll find it should last a little longer. Anyway, so I'm just going to make sure that I have enough, and I don't feel I have enough there already. Okay. So again, here's my Dachshund, who thinks I need his help right now. Come on, buddy. So he wants attention. So dogs are great, but unlike children, they never grow up. Those people out there who have dogs, I'm sure, will understand that. So just, you know, it's nicer if you can do a nice bead from the tube and all that. This tube has been open and beaten around a bit, so when it was new and if I had the proper applicator tip, you can lay down a nice pretty bead like it shows in the picture, but I normally find that quite hard to do. Okay. So there. So that's a nice film of material around the edges. Now, as I was saying, take your thumb or something like that and wipe any excess away from the inside, so it doesn't tend to want to squeeze extra amounts into the oil pan, because quite frankly that's not a good idea. Okay, spot right there, maybe a little bit more. I haven't seen any problems with these sucking up silicone into filters or screens or anything like that, but I have seen it in the past on different vehicles, and those shitty Cavaliers, I've seen that a couple times on those, but then they had all kinds of other problems. Okay, so I'm sure somebody out there will say that they love Cavaliers. Sorry, I don't like them. Okay, so there, one siliconed oil pan ready for install. Less than perfect heads on them. These are not the ones you want to put back in the hard to reach places. You might want to save those for down on the bottom towards the back of the vehicle. So the next time you have to go to remove them, you'll have a relatively good chance of succeeding in doing so. Okay. No, I had a tempo. There it is. So working on the ground is not the easiest way to look after your tools. This little snap-on 1/4 inch ratchet's been with me a long time, and it can take some torque. It's one of the only things I've ever had that never broke. Okay, I think we rough on stuff. Okay, so installed. See if we can see here now. Let me grab a flashlight there. Can you see that little bead of silicone? Let's see if I can hold that there. Okay, so this here along here, that's a little bead of silicone that's squeezing out. You can see it's all the way along and up the edge. Okay, well, I got a good shot of it. Hold on, right there. There we go. So you can see that
all the way around. It's squeezed out a little bit, so I know I should have a good seal. Rag here now. Just run that along there. I'll push that silicone in and clean up that edge, but it'll also allow me to see if there's any drips of oil that are fresh, that aren't from the squeezing of the gasket material. Okay, so put some oil in it. I'll show you how to do that here now for those who don't know. Just 1 second, I'll be right back. Get some oil. Okay, so car's down level now, and we have most of it all put in. The manual says 2.7 liter capacity, but every time I do this, it always takes about 3.2, 3.3. So I've got it now just up on the dipstick here. Get this cleaned off. I'm at about the 3 liter mark on the container, and the sump is just about a quarter way up the full, or up the crosshatch. Now it's been sitting for quite a while, so I'm going to go ahead and put in an extra quarter of a liter or so. There's a point here where it overfills very quickly, and this may be hard to believe, but it can be as detrimental to your engine to overfill it as to not have enough oil. Well, maybe not quite, but it's not any better for the engine. So we're almost halfway up the full mark. So you can say that it takes about 3.5 liters, roughly. But just go to the 2.5 or 3 liter mark, and then go slowly after that. Add a little bit, check, add a little bit, check. Let it sit for a couple of minutes. That will give the oil doesn't take long, the temperature I'm in for, to reach the bottom of the sump, but make sure it's had enough time. So I'm just going to top this up, check it a couple times, and I've finished this. So that's basically how you change out an oil pan. Now this, I didn't actually change it, but if you were going to change it, that's how you take one off, reinstall it, remove, reinstall, and refill. And tomorrow I'm going to do the inner wheel fender on the right side here. It's too dark tonight for it, so I'll take some video of that and I'll post that as well. So I hope this has been helpful. And if I've made any mistakes, please drop me a line and let me know. Like and subscribe, appreciate it. And hopefully I haven't played any music so somebody else monetizes my video, which has been happening a lot lately. You hear music in the background and somebody else hears the music that's been playing on the radio and they monetize my video. None of which I monetize anyway, but I wish they'd stop doing that. So anyway, have a great day. Hope it's been helpful. Cheers.